said yes. Please do.
Okay. Roberta Abdul Salam. Bobby Ash. Jim Durrett.
Mr. Durrett is asking someone to please call his cell phone. He can't log in.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Roderick Edmonds.
Present.
Bill Floyd.
Present.
Roderick Firestone. Roderick Firestone. Ryan Glover.
Present.
Jerry Griffin.
Present.
Frida Hardage.
Present.
Alicia Ivy. Alicia Ivy.
Present.
Russell McMurray. Al Pond.
Present.
Rita Scott.
Present.
Christopher Tomlinson. Thomas Worthy.
Ms. Peters, this is Jim Durrett. I am now on.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thomas Worthy. Mr. Chair, we have 9 board members present.
Wait, this is Roberta Abdul Salam on.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, we now have 10 board members present.
Okay. All right. Again, the meeting is called to order. We're going to approve the August 2020 minutes. Is there a motion?
Move
Mrs.
approval.
Hardage.
Is there a second?
Second, Roberta.
Thank you, Ms. Abdul Salam. Is there any discussion about the minutes? Okay. Hearing none, please let me know if there's anybody who is voting against approval of the minutes. Hearing none, any abstentions? Okay, the minutes are approved. We're going to go to the resolution approving the intergovernmental agreement between MARTA and the City of Atlanta for the redevelopment of airport rail station. Airport rail station. Okay, go ahead.
All right. Dr. Evans, good morning. Good morning, members of the board. General Manager Parker. As previously discussed, the airport rail station is included in our station rehabilitation program. Initially, the approach to complete the works was as identified by a resolution approved by the board on March 28th, 2019. So that particular IGA contemplated the City of Atlanta performing the works utilizing City of Atlanta's contractor, and that contractor was the one that is currently completing the works for the canopy, given the experience they had working around in the terminal. So under that IGA, MARTA would have reimbursed the City of Atlanta for completed works. On April 11, 2019, the board approved that IGA. But in the course of basically moving that through the city's process, the City of Atlanta Department of Aviation decided not to execute it. Therefore, the IGA was tabled. So we are now in the process of moving forward with the airport station rehabilitation. But we are now, as you know, we've included that work in our program, which will be performed by a MARTA contracted construction manager at risk. But we still have to execute an IGA for certain elements, and I'll explain a couple of those elements in a second. So we're in the process of working with legal and contracts procurement to restructure the IGA to reflect the change in delivery methodology. And that change, of course, being, utilizing, MARTA will now be in charge of the construction versus the city utilizing their contractor. So we're currently working with the City of Atlanta Legal as well as the Department of Aviation to finalize the requirements for working at Hartsfield-Jackson. Those requirements that will be included in the IGA will include the following, will include but not be limited to the following. So defining access, safety requirements, staging requirements, basically approval rights for working within the DOA office space, the required notices, indemnification, amongst many other things that will be included there within the IGA. We anticipate completing this agreement within the next 10 days and are targeting presenting the IGA at the October board meeting for approval. Just be mindful that we are targeting to begin the works before the end of the year. So at this time, we are requesting that the resolution be held until we complete the development with the city, and at that point, we will bring it forward again, as previously discussed. Any questions?
First of all, let me just say thank you, Mr. Rucker, for giving us that clear and concise update of what's going on. And, you know, I think we look forward to hearing the specifics as it comes back before the board in the near future. Any committee members have any questions at all?
Do we need a motion to table?
You know what? Was the motion, was the resolution approved and seconded?
No.
Okay, and the answer is no. It came up on, not unless we want to just be ultra comprehensive. I mean, there was no motion that's been seconded, so there's no point of business right now.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
What was the reason that the city declined to continue with the work or carry out the IGA?
Do me a favor, Roberta, repeat the question again. You kind of broke up.
Sorry. What was the reason that the airport decided not to go forward with the IGA to complete the work?
Go ahead and repeat that, Frank.
So the question was, what was the reason why the airport decided not to move forward with the IGA? And from what I've been told is that the city of Atlanta wanted to increase the amount of work they were doing under that particular contract. And, you know, normally they have a certain percentage cap where they can't increase the initial contract by. So that particular contract had been increased, and that cap limit, they decided they wanted to do some additional works, so they didn't have room under the contract to basically fit the works that we were requesting. So, you know, they didn't want to go and extend the authorization, so they decided that they wouldn't move forward with it.
Any other questions or comments from the committee based on about this issue? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rucker. We're going to go to the next point of business. If you could put up the agenda one more time. It was a resolution authorizing the approval of the fiscal year 2021 bus, rail, and mobility service standards. Mr. Williams?
Don, you may be on mute. We can't hear you.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Good morning, Mr. Chair, Mr. Parker, members of the committee. This is a resolution requesting approval of the FY 2021 service standards. As you may be reminded, it is part of the MARTA Act that not later than 120 days after approval of the budget that we come back and approve the service standards for the fiscal year. Just quickly, if I go to the next slide, please. I want to kind of remind you of some of the major things that we did in FY 20. We had a major overhaul of the service standards. We introduced new tiers of service as part of the overall document. We also added standalone executive summary, included some of the best practice from around the country. And again, the idea was to distinguish between service standards and then service design guidelines. And so those all were done up under the FY20 service standards. So we had a major redo of that document. This year, if I go to the next slide, this year we are not necessarily doing any policy changes or any major changes to the document itself. We're just going back and doing some cleanup work in terms of some of the language, i.e. in terms of in the amenities sections, there's a reference to shelters. We changed it to amenities so it can be consistent. We also went back and looked at the concrete pad, and in that document, I noted there was a 10-foot concrete pad, and it actually varies. And so we just did some quick cleanup work as part of this FY21 service standard. So that's it. There were no major changes. And so again, there's just minor tweaks to the document itself. And with that, I will take any questions the committee may have.
Any questions? Any comments? Is there a motion?
I move we approve it.
Mr. Griffin moves.
Second, Ivy.
Ms. Ivy, second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, if there are any votes against it, please make yourself known. Hearing none, are there any abstentions?
This is Robbie Ash. I'm not abstaining. I just wanted to let y'all know I was present since I logged on late.
Thank you, Mr. Ash.
Thank you, Dr. Edmond.
Any abstentions on this motion?
Hello, Dr. Edmond. This is Rita Scott. I can't see anything. I'm not sure what we're voting on, and so I'm going to abstain. I had to be dialed into the meeting, and I don't feel comfortable, so I'm going to abstain.
Okay, understood. Abstention due to not being able to see the information. Any other abstentions or no's? Hearing none, the resolution passes. Let me get back to the agenda. The third resolution is one authorizing advertising for disposition of property rights in parcel D3212, an abandoned rail spur location on the northwest side of New Peachtree Road, Chamblee, DeKalb County, Georgia. Robin Boyd.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Parker, Mr. Rucker, members of the committee. I'm Robin Boyd. I'm the Director of Real Estate. And this parcel, if you could go to the next screen, please. This parcel is for the advertised for sale, a railroad spur. And if you can see from the picture, it is 10,000 square feet, but it's really in the shape of a long sidewalk. And we purchased this in 1992 when we were building the Chamblee station, but it has since been paved over. And we were approached by one of the neighboring property owners to see if we would sell it. So we did an internal due diligence and determined it's no longer needed for operations, maintenance, or repairs. And in fact, if we need to do any of those, there is an access road to the north of this between the Chamblee and the Doraville stations. There is FTA interest in this, and we have received concurrence. And we did an appraisal. It came out at $136,000. So what we're proposing is that the general manager or his delegate be authorized to advertise the property rights in this parcel to sell to the highest bidder, or if no better, then to negotiate for a sale no less than $136,000.
Thank you, Ms. Boyd. Any questions about this?
Motion to approve from Jim Durrett.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second by Robbie Ash. And Ms. Boyd, at a convenient moment, not urgent, would you reach out to me to talk about a different topic, please?
Yes.
I'm curious about the Flint Headwaters project down in College Park.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. We've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any questions? All those against, identify yourself. Any abstentions? All right, the sale passes. Move to the next resolution. This is the last resolution authorizing execution of a license agreement with New Singular Wireless PCS LLC for a monopole located at Art Center Rail Station. Ms. Kendall.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Mr. Parker, Mr. Rucker, and committee members. My name is Venus Kendall. I am the investment associate with real estate. I am supporting the investment management activities of the office, including financial analysis, lease administration, and a host of other charges. I came to MARTA back in February from Cousins Properties, and I also worked as a paralegal in the past. Hello, everybody. Hope all is well. Next slide. Thank you. I will be discussing a resolution authorizing approval to execute a license agreement with New Singular Wireless PCS LLC for a monopole located at our center station. We have had this telecom tower in place with New Singular Wireless for over 20 years. It expired July 2019. New Singular wanted to renew their lease, but as we have a TOD slated for our center station, a procurement was not feasible. Instead, we opted for this short-term license agreement with an early termination option to allow for the TOT to move forward when ready. Next slide. And this is the location of our center station where the monopole was located. I call for the resolution authorizing the approval to execute a license agreement with New Singular Wireless PCS LLC for a monopole located at our center station. Any questions?
Yes. What is a monopole?
It's a like a tower where they put their signal up so that the telephone users in the area can get signal and make phone calls.
Got it. And tell me specifically on this map, and use your pointer, where is it going to be located?
Oh, I don't know if you can see my pointer because I'm not controlling the slide. But it's in this yellow square, if I'm not mistaken.
It's the yellow square. Okay, got it. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, got it. And then you mentioned this before that things kind of got slowed up because the TOD was kind of up in the air. So you're representing to the board that this monopole works within the scheme of whatever TOD ideas and visions are going forward, correct?
Yes, exactly. As soon as the TOD gets ready to take off, the license agreement will be terminated early and AT will vacate the space.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Ash.
Ms. Kendall, if you happen to know, I know that there are a variety of ways in which cell towers are disguised. Or is this one just going to look like a cell tower? Is it going to look like a pine tree, a postmodern pine tree? Or what? I mean, what I'm really trying to ask you is, am I going to get an angry call from the Midtown Alliance about this this ugly new tower that we stuck up on the middle of the Art Center station?
Oh, no, it's already there. It's been there for 20 years. We're just, instead of doing a lease agreement because of the TOD that may be coming soon, we're just doing a short-term license agreement so that they can stay on the property and we can collect rent. That's it.
Perfect. Thank you.
No problem.
Motion to approve.
There's a second.
Second, Jim Durrett.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion or are there any other questions?
Yes, this is Rita Scott. Can you please
Go ahead,
tell
Ms.
me
Scott.
hi again, what page are we on? I'm just able to pull up some documents, so.
I can tell you, I don't know what page we are on in the documents that were given to us. Give me a minute, I can go back. And if anybody knows who's there at the meeting, go ahead and let her know. I'll go back and try to find my notes from the meeting.
It's way at the bottom.
Yeah, it's the end of the packet.
Hey, Scott, it's at the end of the packet, and I would presume that there's going to be an aerial photo.
Page 130.
Thank you.
All right, with that information that Ms. Scott has gotten, do we have any other questions or comments? And I may have done this already. Again, any nays for this resolution? Noes? Any abstentions? The resolution passes. Are there any other matters?
All right, thank you.
Hearing none, the meeting's adjourned.
Oh,
I will say welcome to the team.
thank you.
Okay. Oh, we're in operations and safety. All right, are we ready to go?
We're ready when you are, Mr. Chairman.
All right, could I get approval of the August 27th, 2020 Operation Safety minute?
I'm going to point of order. If we could, go ahead and call the roll again.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Excuse me.
It's okay, thank you. Roberta Abdul Salam. Roberta Abdul Salam. Robbie Ash.
Here.
Jim Durrett.
Here.
Roderick Edmond.
Here.
Bill Floyd.
Present.
Roderick Firestone.
Present.
Ryan Glover.
Present.
Jerry Griffin.
Present.
Frida Harded.
Present.
Alicia Ivy. Russell McMurray. Al Pond.
Present.
Rita Scott.
Present.
Christopher Tomlinson. Thomas Worthy. Mr. Chair, we have 11 board members present.
Thank you very much. Could I get a motion to approve the minutes of the August 27th meeting?
Motion approved, Roberta.
Frida Hardage, second.
Are there any objections? Any abstentions? If not, the minutes are approved. Okay, we got a briefing coming up on mobility, and let's see, I'm going to call on Polly to introduce this presentation. Polly? Polly? Okay.
Well, there we are. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I hear you now.
Perfect. Thank you. Sorry about that. I just wanted to take this opportunity. So first of all, good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Mr. Parker. Just before Peter lines up his presentation, I wanted to take this opportunity to just note that today's mobility briefing provides us with a really good, timely backdrop to two very important resolutions that are coming in front of you today. So item number 3 is the mobility operations and maintenance services contract that Santiago is going to be presenting. And then Peter will be back for item number 4, which is the mobility centralized scheduling and dispatch services. So I just thought it was a great time to share some reassurances with the board that these changes are being onboarded into a progressive, successful, and customer-focused environment, a mobility environment. So per the agenda, Peter will take you through the critical numbers and demonstrate solid, quantifiable evidence of said progress. He will also guide us through an update on COVID-19 and explain how we're managing to maintain progress in our key performance indicators by ensuring progress on key health and safety measures for employees and customers. But first, we're very excited to share with you what we've been doing all year as a result of MARTA's first ever mobility town hall. I remember we had packed the atrium, and many of the people on this call helped to serve and engage with hundreds of motivated mobility customers. Ms. Ivy led in discussion with other members of the panel. Ms. Roberta emceed the event, leading the participants in no uncertain terms. And as we said that night, it was October 29th, we said that there was very little value in bringing everyone together if we weren't prepared to do the work that would inevitably come out of that. Every public comment was recorded. We categorized the comments, we acted on the comments, and today I'm proud to say that Peter Bruno, Acting Director of Mobility, will provide an update on those categories with metrics, tactics, and results. So without further ado, Peter, I turn it over to you.
All right, Peter.
All right.
Go.
Thank you. Thank you, Collie. Good morning, Chairman Griffin, Vice Chair Ivy, members of the Operations Safety Committee, and Mr. Parker. It is my pleasure to provide an update of MARTA's mobility program. Next slide, please. The agenda, as Collie mentioned, follows pretty much three primary areas: mobility town hall recap and progress update, COVID-19 health safety measures, and then we'll conclude with an overview of our FY20 key performance indicators. Next slide. Real briefly, town hall recap was held on October 29, 2019. Roughly 211 customers, stakeholders, and other interested parties attended. 37 individuals provided comment during the event, and 50 to 60 MARTA staff supported the event. A great number of those were our contractor operators who were providing trips to and from headquarters atrium. Next slide. The comments fell roughly along six different primary categories, and they were on-time performance, onboard communication, reservations, pickup and drop-off, location, freeze, and onboard time. Next slide. Starting with our on-time performance, the authority objective is to exceed the contractual target of roughly 90%. Since the town hall meeting on-time performance has averaged 93%, at the time of the town hall in 2019 October, we're performing at 84%. We concluded FY20 at 96%. Presently, we're operating at roughly 95%. So we are exceeding the contractual target. Onboard communication. The objective here is to enforce professionalism and customer awareness. We employ three tactics to meet this objective: daily monitoring of radio communications by the oversight team and correction as required. Our contractor has the ability to covertly monitor their dispatchers for training, coaching, and quality control purposes. And we've also done a revision of the guidelines around radio for requiring professionalism and proper radio usage. On the reservation side, the objective here is a call abandonment rate of less than 5.5% with a queue hold time of less than 120 seconds. At the time of the town hall in October 2019, our call abandonment rate was 5.75% with a queue hold time of 149 seconds. In September of 2020, as we speak, call abandonment rate is at 0.25% with a queue hold time of 13 seconds. And here again, the oversight team has the ability to covertly monitor our reservation agents for training, coaching, and quality control purposes. Next slide. Trip pickup and drop-off location. The objective here is 100% accuracy of customer trip location. There's three tactics we employ here. We're working with our partners in IT to update the base map and the trapeze path system. And we've established a biannual review. It's important that in our ever-changing environment in the Atlanta metro area, it's important that base map is always up to date to ensure this accuracy. We're also updating our system parameters, constantly examining the MARTA system boundaries, fixed route, bus system, so forth, so that's accurate. And the oversight team has field inspectors who have in the past gone out to physically observe and look at trip pickup and drop-off locations in case we need to make adjustments. Most recently, we surveyed Emory University Clifton Corridor campus and St. Joseph Hospital. Turning to the breeze system, the objective is to have vehicles with inoperable breeze smart card readers back in service in 1 day or less. We've employed increased supervision of our cubic technicians, and we fully migrated the smart card reading transmissions over to cellular. In October of 2019, at the time of the town hall, we were not meeting that 1 day back in service requirement. I can report after a year of hard work with our internal departments, we are now meeting that 1 day in service requirement. And finally, on board time. The objective is 0 excessive rides per monthly 50 randomly sampled trips. While FTA doesn't establish a number per month, they just say it can't be substantial, we at the authority have set 0 as our standard on a monthly basis. In October of 2019, we reported to Diversity and Inclusion, who monitors us, 0 excessive rides of 50 random ride samples. In July of 2020, the most recent report we submitted to Diversity and Inclusion, we had 1 excessive ride. However, we are continually employing tactics to assume objective compliance, looking at operations focus, and working toward that 0 excessive ride per month. Next slide. Just want to briefly provide a COVID-19 health safety measure update to you. In the upper left corner there, you see a hand sanitizer dispenser. We've installed hand sanitizers on the mobility vehicle. These are ruggedized dispensers with a handle that can be used by anyone. It's installed at the ADA required 44 inches, so it's accessible to everyone who rides our vehicles, accessible to the operators as well. In the lower left there, since March, our reservation agents have been taking reservations from home, and this has been very successful. As you see here, you see one of our agents with our home office set up, ready to take customer calls. Our operators have been wearing masks on board while transporting our customers since March, and our customers are also wearing masks. And then finally, you see the Eligibility Assessment Center in the right. We've made some improvements there. We've established more of a hospital intake sort of environment where there's established cubicles and established barriers and so forth. And our front entry reception area has also been set up with health safety measures there. As an aside, we reopened the Eligibility Center on September 21st, and we've begun to have folks come in for their assessments employing these expanded enhanced health safety measures. Next slide. Moving now to a discussion of our FY20 KPIs. As you can see here, on-time performance. In September of 2019, we're at a low for FY20, roughly 84%. We hit a high in May of about 97%, and we finished FY20 at roughly 95%. I can report for September 2020, we continue to be at 95%. Next slide. Just quickly comparing our FY20 on-time performance with FY19, you can see in June of FY19, which is the blue line, we finished at about 90%. And as I said, we finished FY20, the orange line, at roughly 96%. So we beat our targeted 90% by 6% in FY20. That's through the hard work of our partners at GTS and MV and the rest of the authority team. Next slide. Looking now at revenue hours. This very dramatically points out the shelter-in-place order our governor issued in the March timeframe. You can see in October 2019, we hit a high of roughly about 49,000 revenue hours. Then in February, we began to move downward, 47,000. You can see in March, when the shelter-in-place started to take hold, we were at 36,000, and then we hit a low in April of 20,000. We are beginning to pick that up. In June, we finished at 27, and in September, we're finishing at roughly 29,000 revenue hours. So the trips and the revenue hours are picking up. Next slide, please. Now turning to trips, similar pattern as revenue hours. We had a high of 53,000 trips in October, then a low of roughly 17,000 trips in April, finishing the fiscal year on an upward trend at 25,000 trips. Now for September, we're continuing that trend. Next slide. Mean distance between failure is a measure of how well our maintenance program is performing. And primarily, as you know, the maintenance program of our contractors. Mobility benefited greatly this year with the introduction of new vehicles represented by the orange bar charts. That allowed us to hit a high mean distance between failure rate of 247,000 in February. We ended the year at about 68,000, which is well above the 15,000 mile target. Next slide. Finally, looking at our functional assessment, which is managed at the Eligibility Center. The pie chart depicts the assessments, how they're broken down by category. As you can see, the great number of roughly 44% were given temporary eligibility. This was primarily because at the end of March, we suspended in-person assessments as a COVID-19 health safety measure and automatically gave our customers 6-month extension. We are now bringing those customers back in for their assessments. And then to the right of the pie chart, you can see how our functional assessments are broken out by jurisdiction. DeKalb and Fulton in the city of Atlanta are the primary areas where the majority of our assessments come. Next slide. Major initiatives over the next 180 days. We're going to continue the execution of the bus operations pandemic plan. We're going to obviously have a rigorous and regular evaluation of how mobility ties into that. One example was the reopening of the assessment center. We'll be coming to the committee for request for award and mobilization of our mobility operations and maintenance services contract, which Santiago will talk to you in a few minutes. We'll also be coming to the board for approval and award and beginning mobilization of our renewed eligibility functional assessment contract. And finally, in a couple of minutes, I'll be requesting solicitation authorization for our centralized dispatch and scheduling program. We're going to continue our contractor compliance and oversight as well. And I'm also happy to say that we're targeting November 1st, working with our partners in IT for the launch of the online submittal of eligibility applications. This will alleviate our customers from having to go to the post office, having to hand those in, so moving the eligibility program into the mainstream with the ability to submit that application online. We think this will open up accessibility to a far wider range of customers. And finally, I want to mention we're talking with partners in external affairs about holding a virtual town hall meeting, possibly before the end of this calendar year, to provide an update to our customers and stakeholders on our progress of things they mentioned last year and things that we're looking forward to work on. Chairman, that concludes my presentation. I'm going to hand back to you.
All right. Peter, thank you very much for that report. Are there any questions you have of Peter right now? He'll be back later.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, if I may, this is Roberta.
Yes.
Just to, first of all, thank you, Mr. Bruno, and to Mr. Greenwood. Thank you both for the tremendous work that's been done within the last year. A couple of things, and they're not criticisms. I'm letting you know what I hear. So I've heard from just a few people having trouble getting through on the phone sometimes. And I know that people are stretched out and busy, and so I didn't elevate that to anybody. And then the other thing is, after 5 years of requesting, I'm very pleased to hear that we will soon have online access for application. That's going to be a game changer for a lot of people. And just, Kali, if you will, go back through your records. There was 400 people in attendance, not 211 for the October last year event.
Thank you.
All right, anything else? I know Ms. Abdul Salam and Ms. Ivy have been very much involved in this, and we appreciate that from the board. Moving along, we have a resolution authorizing the award of a contract for mobility operations and maintenance services, RFPP 45152. Santiago Osborne, Deputy Chief of Bus Operations. Tell us about the contract.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Griffin, Vice Chair, Ms. Ivy, board members, Mr. Parker, members of the Operations and Safety Committee. I will be requesting your approval of a staff recommendation for the award of RFP 42894 for mobility operations and maintenance services. But before I begin, I would like to spend just a few moments providing context behind our recommendation. Next slide, please. So since 2016, MARTA Mobility has been evolving to better serve our customers and our stakeholders. In February 2016, Mobility awarded a contract to MV, who is a private provider for operations and maintenance services. In May 2016, MV began the full operations and maintenance of services. MARTA Mobility Services, MARTA Oversight Team was placed as for contract oversight management. In March 2019, MARTA awarded a supplement O&M contract to GTS, who is basically the provider for the service south of I-20, which represents 1/3 of our service area. This set the stage for future geographical management for MARTA. Today, September 20, in front of the committee for consideration for RFP 42894, renewal of the O&M contract services to support the 2/3 of the service area just north of I-20. In May 2021, we look forward to the startup for the new 2/3 service area for the O&M contract, central scheduling and dispatch, and eligibility assessment contracts. Next slide, please. So there was a 3-center scenario that was conceived as means to reduce unnecessary miles and hours to reduce the onboard time for our customers. This scenario represented an opportunity and it proposed options to cover 2/3 of mobility service. It assumed the current service provided at Hamilton and Brady garages. It was designed to create competition and to maximize performance. It also assumed an additional garage in the northern quadrant of the MARTA service district. This was designed to reduce travel time and also to improve the customer experience. MARTA optioned to award to 2 firms covering the 1/3 each, Brady plus the TBD garages. It also was designed to mitigate growth, demand, pressures on costs and resources. But recent developments have caused a near-term reassessment of this concept. We also, as a staff, will recognize the need for future evaluations and continued analysis of that concept. Next slide, please. Recent internal and external developments have basically created a reevaluation of this scenario. The uncertainty around and the continued impact of ridership by the pandemic, as you saw Peter give us the very great graphic about the revenue hours and the trips that have drastically reduced. Right now, we're providing almost 50% of our trips. The implementation of the centralized scheduling and dispatch center creates a new mobility approach. This basically requires time, is needed to implement, evaluate, and adjust as required. There's a motivation to take advantage of an attractive rate for revenue hours as proposed by a recommended firm. Next slide, please. In 2021, the MARTA Mobility Program will continue to evaluate or to evolve towards greater efficiency and higher quality customer service. As you can see at a glance, the eligibility portion of the mobility program is basically handled by 2 parties. For an NTM, who is a DBE provider, they gave us the services or eligibility assessment for our customers. And the process of applications and travel training is handled by MARTA employees. The reservations is 100% supported by MARTA employees. And in 2021, MARTA oversight team will basically oversight the centralized scheduling dispatch that you will hear soon from Peter, and the O&M services for Brady, the 2/3 service, and the O&M services out of Hamilton, who was currently GTS. Next slide, please. So mobilization plan and the continuity of operations. We basically recommend that the prime provider to begin executing staffing, operations, and maintenance plans. The current prime provider to continue service delivery at a person levels until May 2021. Their highest performing current DBE provider is moving forward to the new contract with the recommended prime provider. 4 years of solid service to MARTA with bolsters prime startup. Next slide, please. So here are some of the things that we've learned in the last 4 years. The MARTA oversight team has had basically 4 years of a structured contract auditing and compliance reviews. In 2016, we used the concept of the ramp up of trips beginning 45 days out. That worked very well, and we're planning to utilize that same process on the new contract. The highest performing DBE contractor will remain in place for current to the new contract, resulting in no lag on participation. That means on day one, we will have the full DBE compliance, and it will be no need to start up or have a transition. D&I monitors the DBE compliance. They do this by monitoring invoices. They ask for access right reports. They do have monthly meetings to go over relationship between DBE and the prime. 1/3 of the service provided under a separate contract assures consistency service delivery to the mobilization. Our process has changed. We analyze and we assess how contracts now can mobilize. At the beginning of 2016, everyone was new. The process was new. ATS was new. That's a DBE. Now they're performing great. UTS is also a DBE and is also performing at its prime. Next slide, please. Current prime contractor has accumulated the overall 12% of DBE participation. There's no secret. There were some difficulties getting underway in the first 2 years of the contract. The first year reflecting about 2% and year 2, 1.5. As of today, the overall concept represents 12% of DBE participation. Even though in 2020, their DBE participation has performed at a maximum levels, but it doesn't aggregate to the total that it was on the contract. Recommended prime contractor has committed to a 22% DBE participation. Utilizing the DBE contractor already providing service for us, there's no need for mobilizing, no interruption in service between contracts. The supplement O&M contract that we currently have handling GTS is 100% DBE provider. We also have the functional assessment service contract who basically has 25% of DBE participation. Before I go into the next slide, I just want to highlight the fact that even though we struggled in the first 2 years and even on year 3, and now the percentage of DBE participation is high, we're still at a 12% DBE participant rate. Next slide, please. No, there was supposed to be a different slide, but I will read it. Mobility and O&M DBE value. Currently, our contract value for 2/3 of mobility is the total contract we're asking for is almost $160 million. With a 22% DBE participation, that will equals to a $35 million of DBE. The contract value for the 1/3 of mobility is for $39 million, which is out of the $39 million is a full 100% DBE participation. So when we look at the O&M total contract value, out of almost $200 million, 74 million of that is the DBE participation value, which should give us a robust 37.5 DBE participation going into the next contract. So what is the transition plan overview? Employees, our current contract employees are to be given hiring preferences, assuming onboarding and the skill requirements are met. MARTA support the right to unionize. We expect our prime to be neutral. We put clauses in the contract to protect our employees during transition. Our MARTA assets will be handled with the vehicle and facility conditions inspections result will determine the incumbent contractor. The contractor owned store inventory, that we will have a buyout plan set for that. And
Do you have this?
now,
Do you have this report somewhere? It just didn't get sent to us.
Yes, sir. We will make sure that you have it. It was a last minute change, and we will make sure you have it. So now, sir, Mr. Chair, I move to approve of the resolution authorizing the general manager and CEO or his delegates to enter into a contract for mobility of operations and maintenance services RFP 42894.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
This is Jim.
Yes, I hear you.
Hey, this is Jeff Parker. Can I just make a important comment, because Santiago covered two extremely important issues at the end that I want to just bring a tiny bit of more attention to. One is we all lived the difficult conversations we had with the DBE performance in the last contract.
Yes.
We are prepared to go from 12% participation in the past contract to nearly 40% participation between the two firms that we will be engaging, assuming this contract is approved. So I want to thank Kali and Santiago and Peter and so many people who took this issue serious in the organization, and I think we've completely changed the dynamic on that. The other piece is we recognize there's a transition of contractors that we're proposing. That is a transition for employees as well, clearly. And, you know, we recognize and built that into contract requirements. So clearly, you know, hiring preference and spoken to the you know, first transit, the contractor, about these two issues, DBE and the transition. And I'm confident that we will move smoothly with these two issues that could become very difficult and thorny, and we have seen, you know, problems in the past. So I have a high level of confidence with where we are now. So
Let me
sorry to interrupt.
All right, let me get a motion on the floor. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion to approve, Durrett.
Durrett, second?
Second, Rod Frierson.
Okay, now then, let's have some discussion. Anybody got anything?
I've got one question.
All right, Mr. Bond.
The highest performing DBA is going to move to the new contractor. My question is, that subcontractor was still in the competitive analysis, or was it not? Could you explain that a little more, how that worked in the analysis of the selection and solicitation?
I can start with that, and then I can throw it over to our contracts folks. But the subcontractor that it was the highest performing subcontractor in terms of work done in DBE performance is ATS. ATS was a part of, by virtue of the fact that we had industry day, we forged connections. Another important aspect of the change in process that we took. ATS was in contact with the two key players that were applying for this contract. Both of those primes had committed to using ATS as their subcontractor. So the point being, ATS is the group that's providing the service today to our customers, and regardless of which prime was going to get the contract, they had both committed to continuing ATS, so that employees, customers, and quite frankly, the professional relationship would be seamless in that transition.
So the question again is was their cost embedded in the overall solicitation and recommendation, or is it set aside separate?
So Kali, if I might, this is Liz. Just to answer that question, the subcontractor, DBE subcontractor, that was, the cost for that was included in the overall proposal that First Transit submitted.
Okay, that answers the question.
All right, yeah. Okay. Any more questions? Are you ready to vote?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Salami.
I wanted to know, there was a mention, I think, by Mr. Parker, the role of First Transit. So what will that be going forward?
Mr. Parker?
Given, if I can start.
Okay, Colin.
Given the scope of the contract, they will be, if approved, they will be providing operations and maintenance services out of duty for MARTA. If that's the
I'm sorry, Colin, you breaking up. Say it again.
They'll be providing full operations and maintenance services for MARTA out of the Brady facility.
Okay.
All right.
So they will become the prime. They are the prime.
Correct.
So they're no longer a subcontractor.
So, Ms. Salam, actually, you know, MV is currently the prime. So this will be a new contract with First Transit as the prime contractor.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Any more questions?
Mr. Ivy.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Ivy.
Mr. Chair, I would like to just say for the record, Greenwood and the rest of the team, a very good job. In addition to that, I want to also say that it is moving in the right direction. Increase in the DBE participation. So I would like to thank you very much and also congratulate you for the efforts moving forward. I yield the Chairman Griffin.
All right, thank you, ma'am. If there's no further questions, does anybody object? Are there any no votes? Are there any abstentions? If not, the motion passed. Okay, you got your resolution. Number 4, a resolution authorizing the solicitation of proposals for the procurement of mobility, centralized scheduling and dispatching services, RFP P46865. Peter Bruno again.
Okay. Good morning again, Chairman Griffin, Vice Chair Ivy, members of the Operations Safety Committee, Mr. Parker. Last fall, MARTA released a request for proposal to secure mobility, centralized scheduling, and dispatch services from a well-qualified vendor. The result of this solicitation was MARTA's receipt of one responsible proposal. Accordingly, the Source Evaluation Committee made the decision to reject that sole proposal, cancel the solicitation, and prepare to put the technical specs back out for bid. The Division of Bus Operations is requesting a re-solicitation of this request for proposal. Next slide. Just very briefly reminding everyone, what is the role of the centralized dispatch and scheduling firm? They will support the mobility operations and maintenance providers through the provision of scheduling services, dispatch services, administrative support, such as performance reporting and quality management. The successful proponent will work closely with MARTA Mobility for applying a consistent and standardized approach to delivering service. Next slide. We can look at it this way. On the left, we've got fixed route bus service, which is an integrated network management system. You've got the garage-based operations and maintenance, Laredo, Perry, and Hamilton. And then you have the bus control center at the IOC, which manages the live service day, the on-street delivery, the dispatch with the operators. This provides for allocation of resources across the fixed route bus network as necessary, troubleshooting, and so forth. Presently, in the mobility system, we've got garage-based O&M at Brady and Hamilton, but we've got MV managing the service. They're also providing the service. This is a provider network management, so it doesn't really afford an objective application of the service. What the successful proponent will do is move toward more of an integrated network management, as is the case with fixed route. So you have mobility, garage-based O&M, and then a centralized service management of dispatch and scheduling. Next slide. What this will result in is an objective, consistent, and standardized application of policies and procedures such as COVID-19 health safety measures, FDA rules and regulations, and authority KPI targets. In essence, it will allow for network management of resources, manpower, supervision, and equipment across all the mobility O&M locations. And it will result in a more efficient, high-performing service delivery and greater customer satisfaction. Next slide. Now turning to the agenda report. Resolution authorizing the solicitation of proposals for procurement of mobility centralized scheduling and dispatching services, RFP 46865. Staff requests that the MARTA Board of Directors authorize the solicitation of proposals for the procurement of mobility centralized dispatch and scheduling. The estimated amount of the contract is $45,987,831 for a term of 3-year base with 5 one-year options. Following approval by the Board of Directors to advance this request for proposals, staff intends to seek proposals from the marketplace. These proposals will be evaluated by staff based upon clearly defined criteria and responsiveness. The Office of Diversity and Inclusion has assigned a disadvantaged business goal of 26% to this procurement. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report. I'm turning it back to you.
Do I hear a motion to approve?
I move for approval.
Motion to approve.
All right, we got a motion and a,
Second, Hartage.
okay, we got a motion and second. The discussion. Any discussions, Mr. Bruno? This is a solicitation of proposal.
Right.
I have a,
Chairman,
yeah, go ahead.
go ahead, Roberta. I apologize.
It's all right. I'm sorry. Just in terms of making sure that I'm clear, will if we move to this model, which I think is probably very good, will we be displacing current employees? That's my concern, and I'm not sure I understand it.
The answer to that is no. The reservations, which was a part of this last go round, is no longer part of this. I will say that MD is handling this role now, and contract language provides for preferential consideration of the current employees managing this, assuming they meet the onboarding and skills requirements.
All right.
That's not a definite no. That's a maybe.
Roberta, can you hear me now? I apologize. I was having some trouble earlier.
Yes, sir.
So this is the maybe, as you pointed out, I think is fair. This is the same transition that we undertook when we outsourced it to MB originally, where we had given preference to now former MARTA employees. We're doing the same thing with the contract that you just voted on. And then under this contract, we will, that we're proposing to advertise, we would have the same language. So we do have, we have had a consistent approach that is, largely driven by the decision to outsource, creates these transitions, and the way we try and protect our employees is through the contract requirements of giving preferential treatment to the hiring process, through the hiring process.
Mr. Parker, will there be any union considerations in these transactions?
So I'm not sure if these employees are unionized now. Ultimately, what we have done, and it's the same sort of consistent story as I was describing before, is that our contract language, and Liz should step in here, would provide that there is a negotiation with the union, although it would be on the employees to or the union in order to get enough people, 51% of the employees to decide to unionize. So like,
Yes, sir.
for example, that had been done successfully with the MB contracts, the 2 DBE contractors that we use. One is a sub to MB and GTS. Those employees have not organized with the ATU, but the MB employees have.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. The transparency is good.
You're welcome.
Related to that, it may be well at some point to look at what we've done in terms of contracting out various services versus in-house. I think that was an issue that was brought up in the audit that was done, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years ago. And that might be an interesting discussion to have someday. All right, any more discussion? If not,
Mr. Chairman. Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I have a
on the
question.
floor.
Some years ago when we did this transportation vote, one of the projects in that vote was a region-wide coordination of this type thing. And that was one of the projects that was going to be paid for out of there. And I'm wondering if something like that fits here, and whether MARTA has the ability to go outside of the region that we cover in and enhance this type service, whether that's a consideration or whether we just have given up on that aspect of it.
Mr. Parker?
Yeah, it is something that I think the region needs to continue to consider. There are definitely regions in the country where multiple transit providers serving different parts of the region have a single contract for mobility, or as we call it, or paratransit service. Something to consider. At one of the slides that Peter showed you did show registrations, and there were some folks from Cobb and Gwinnett. So we are, obligated under the law to provide service within our jurisdiction. I believe, and if I believe Peter's still on. We do connect into a very small piece of Cobb County where we run service up there, and as the region becomes more integrated, particularly if we look at what Gwinnett County is planning, we will be really forced to consider more of those integrated services. But we really as a region haven't figured that out yet, how to do that. But a mobility customer can go from Gwinnett to a location inside the MARTA district. It may require a transfer of services, just like the bus service into our rail service would be required for a patron that is using our fixed route service.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm wondering if maybe a couple of things, and I know I didn't hear Chris being part of this call, but whether this is something that we ought to take up with the ATL board, whether there might be a state project that might be willing to fund something like this that MARTA could certainly be the seed or the center of, or that type thing, or whether that's a discussion for another time. All those questions. One of the realities of that is that something worthwhile considering. I would suggest, though, that we've got to be very careful of having a third party covering, managing the system, because ultimately, today and for a long time, we're providing about 95% of these mobility trips. So it's really important for us to both provide quality service, but contain the cost of this service as well. And if another agency is controlling that,
we may be, have a limited ability to influence the overall cost of this service.
All right, thank you. I did not get my sure we'll take care of that answer, but that's okay. I understand.
Okay.
So,
Any other discussion?
yeah, I have one question. Frierson, so what you're saying is that in the other jurisdictions like Cobb, we are required, if we get a call for mobility service, to service that particular person in that area, as far as that we need to go?
No. The service that we provide is one that is geographically defined. So it is a certain area around our service area. There is a very small, I think it's the Route 10 or 12 that we run into Cobb County, into Galleria. So that becomes part of our service area because we go up there. So that's really the anomaly right now.
Right.
I think that will change over time as people, Gwinnett and or Cobb invest in more transit, but we make the requirement to serve is one of geographic. It's not where you live. It's where your trip starts and ends. Mm-hmm. So, so our pickup and drop off areas are defined by our service area.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
The proximity to our fixed route service.
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah, it's just
Correct.
1/4 of a mile. It has to be within 1/4 of a mile of a bus or other service area.
Correct.
Roberta, this is Frida. I thought it was 1 mile. I thought it was one full mile.
Is it? I'm sorry, this is Liz. It's 3/4 of a mile.
3/4 of a mile.
Yeah.
Okay.
We were all
3/4 of a mile by fixed route. Okay.
Just less than a mile.
Thank you.
And the other piece of that is it's express service is not included. So an agency like, for example, Greta Express is not providing that same level of service, but Gwinnett County in their fixed route system, they are, but the buses that, for example, that go into downtown, the Gwinnett service that does not. So there's some anomalies there in terms of how that's defined, but all of our bus routes and rail services is part of that mobility service area.
All right, any more discussion? If not, does anybody object to the resolution? Are there any abstentions? If not, the resolution passes. Okay, next item is resolution authorizing the award of a contract for the procurement of emergency on-call repairs and maintenance services for MARTA light rail, overhead contact system, and traction power substations, IFB B45065. Lawrence Graham, Acting Director, Light Rail. Mr. Graham.
Can everyone hear me?
Thank you.
All right. Good morning, Chairman Griffin, Vice Chairman Ivy, Mr. Parker, and members of the Operations and Safety Committee. Again, my name is Lawrence Graham, and I'm the Acting Director for Light Rail, and I'm over Operations and Maintenance. And before requesting the approval for this contract, I would like to show a high-level streetcar overview presentation on how this contract will work hand-in-hand with our overhead contact system and traction power substations, and how we will continue to provide a safe and reliable service. Next slide, please. So how and where is the power distributed to run and operate the streetcars? First, we received 20,000 kilovolts AC from Georgia Power to the high voltage AC switchgears inside the substations. The power is then stepped down through the transformer, and the AC power is converted to 700 volts DC through the rectifier to the DC switchgears. Feeder cables run underground from the switchgears to designated OCS poles that have feeder switch boxes, and from the boxes, the cables run up to the OCS wire. When the line is energized, 750 volts DC is collected by the pantographs on top of the streetcars, and it is distributed to all electrical components and the traction motors, and thus makes the streetcars accelerate. With this process, it is very similar to our heavy rail mode, with the third rail providing power to the trains, but the substations provide the same amount of power. Next slide, please. So we have a total of 3 substations. There are 2 substations that provide power to the alignment and 1 that provides power to the yard and shop here at the vehicle maintenance facility. Under normal operations, Substation 2, which is located at the streetcar vehicle maintenance facility, and Substation 3, located at Peachtree Center, are both online. Under any circumstance, if and when a substation needs to be down for a major inspection or troubleshooting, we can take Substation 2 or 3 offline, and 1 can provide power to the whole alignment. They basically back up for one another. Next slide, please. These are just some key purposes on what the contract, on why we're trying to get the contract. So the contractor, accompanied and observed by our maintenance team, will make sure the overhead contact system and substations are in a state of good repair while following all MARTA SOPs, plans, and guidelines. The contractor will conduct monthly, quarterly, semi-annual, and annual preventive maintenance inspections on the OCS and substations. The contractor will provide on-call services and emergency repairs, and lastly, they will provide training to our maintenance personnel. Next slide, please. With our current contractor now, and for the last 5 years, C3M has had some significant accomplishments. As you see, they provided a 10-day coverage around the clock to keep watch of the OCS and substations during the Super Bowl. Twice a year, they have completed seasonal tensioning for expanding and contracting wires. They made sure we didn't have any sagging or overly tight wires. The contact wire has been staggered along the whole alignment, and this helps out with even wear on the pantograph carbons. And as you see on the far left picture, new support equipment was installed for more permanent and long-lasting support rather than tie wraps, which would break easily from natural elements. And lastly, they have completed an emergency repair on a feeder cable that with time and vibration had been cut through the insulation and grounded to the OCS poles. So kudos to C3M there. Next slide. That concludes my presentation, and now I will continue with the agenda report. So this procurement will be largely funded by grant funds and matched with local operating funds. The DBE goal for this procurement is 20%, and the subcontractor is DNR Construction and Contracting. Regarding any past DBE goals, the contract came from the City of Atlanta and did not have a DBE goal assigned to it. This is a recurring contract. This is a firm fixed unit price contract for a term of 3 years with 2 one-year options. The notice to bidders was sent to 3 vendors for the procurement of emergency on-call repairs and maintenance services for MARTA's light rail, OCS, and substations. The notice of invitation for bids was advertised in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the Georgia Procurement Registry, the Georgia Local Government Access Marketplace, and on MARTA's website. 17 firms retrieved the online solicitation. 1 bid was received and submitted by C3M Power Systems LLC in the amount of $4,082,802.00 and was determined to be a responsive and responsible bidder. Unfortunately, other vendors didn't have enough experience or didn't supply this very unique type of service with the OCS. With this being a special type of service and not many light rail streetcar lines in the southeastern region, I was able to get in touch with a couple of agencies just to see their process and the procurement process with this type of service. Hampton Roads Transit in Norfolk, Virginia, with their light rail attracted 5 large OCS installation companies, but HRT was not a big enough operation or located well enough for quick mobilization, and thus only received 1 bid, which was C3M, and they were awarded the contract. Houston Metro is currently in the same boat as us with maintenance on OCS and TPSS, and they have received one bid also and will be going to the board for approval in October. So with that said, I am respectfully requesting the approval of a resolution authorizing the general manager, CEO, or his delegate to enter into a contract for the procurement of emergency on-call repairs and maintenance services for MARTA's light rail overhead contact system and traction power substations with C3M Power Systems, LLC.
Do I hear a motion to approve?
MARTA moves approval.
Who moved?
Portage, I second.
Okay, we got a motion and second. Discussion.
Yeah, I like to say I do appreciate the fact that Mr. Graham went outside of the box to see what other agencies are doing and how they're facing their whole procurement process in terms of trying to reach their DBE goals. And once again, you know, I always have some reservations when I see that we only have one bidder in this whole process, but I do understand that it's a very specialized service, like you mentioned. But once again, thanks for bringing that to the table for me, because I needed to know that we may not be the only one faced with this. And as I'm trying to understand how we make sure we have a level ground so that we can have great participation across, you know, all our contracts, it helps me to understand just what that looks like and how we face those things. So thank you.
No problem.
I thank you for preparing that and presenting all your checking on that too. We hate sole source contracts without a lot of information. Any more discussion?
Mr. Chair, I do have one.
Bond.
No issues with this contract, but this is the second one today where we have not seen in the visual presentation the analysis with the cost analysis that the staff does, and typically it was in the board package. I'm just surprised we couldn't drop one page of that in this presentation, so we could be looking at the cost and the bids, that kind of thing. So just a comment for future presentation.
Okay, related to
we'll take care of that in the future, Mr. Pond.
And related to that, Marie, if it is possible, could you put page numbers? I think Ms. Scott brought this up earlier, and we get such a long agenda on our computer. If you could give us page numbers on the agenda, I think that might help us also follow along and keep up with you with the presentations.
Yes, sir, I will do that going forward.
All right. Any more discussion on this proposal or this contract? If not, does anybody object to the contract? Are there any abstentions? Motion passed. Okay, item 6, resolution authorizing the solicitation of proposals for the procurement of deep cleaning and sanitizing services for John Thomas, Acting Director of Facilities. Mr. Thomas.
Good morning, Chairman, Mr. Parker, Mr. Greenwood, and Operations and Safety Committee members. If I may, I would like to bring your attention to agenda item number 6, seeking authorization to receive requests for proposals for deep cleaning and sanitizing services of MARTA facilities. Next slide, please. The intent is to provide a long-term solution for the enhanced deep cleaning and sanitizing of our most frequently used facilities. This program will follow recommendations from the APTA Standards Development Plan with regards to the recovery and restoration of service for transit agencies in response to the pandemic outbreak and impacting public transportation. Next slide, please. This effort will provide continued support of achieving 2 of the authority's strategic initiatives, improving the customer experience and promoting the MARTA image and brand. Next slide. As demonstrated in the provided photos, the initial effort was established as a temporary bridge in an effort to protect patrons and employees during the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic by providing emergency on-call and cleaning efforts targeting key high traffic locations. Next slide. The initial endeavor was established in an urgent effort to mitigate the impact of the viral pandemic on patrons and employees throughout the system. Therefore, next slide, please. Therefore, in an effort to further establish the authority's responsiveness, I respectfully request authorization to receive requests for proposals for deep cleaning and sanitizing services at MARTA operating facilities. Thank you.
All right, you hear the recommendation. Is there a motion?
I move Frida Hartage.
I second Robbie Ash.
All right, we've got a motion and second discussion. This is a solicitation. If there's no discussion, anybody?
Chair, I have a quick question. Sorry.
Excuse me. Yes, sir.
I've already asked this once time, but I was muted, so you didn't hear it. So
I didn't.
Anyway, my question is this a one-off project? Is this project strictly due to COVID, or will this be a continuing issue over the next 20 years?
Let me help with that question. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
The initial decision here is around supporting COVID-19, making sure that our stations are cleaner. But I think one thing that we have learned through the pandemic is that there are some pretty significant areas of our stations. And could the person controlling the slides go back maybe one or two slides to the there's that one, go forward one. I think this is Garnett Station. Yeah, it is Garnett Station. We have pictures of areas of the system that, quite frankly, we've just never cleaned before. You can see that cement round structure. That is not water running down it. We've gone from clean cement to from just dirty cement to clean cement. So I think that we've got to establish a ongoing protocol of some heavy duty cleaning on a regular basis to keep our stations in good shape. And I think we will be, the intention right now as we develop the scope and advertise this, is to have this high level ongoing very deep cleaning of our stations that are things that just the routine regular maintenance doesn't get to. We believe that not only with as a reaction to the expectations of our customers coming back to our system, but we also just believe a cleaner environment is what our customers were expecting even pre-COVID-19, and this will help support that effort. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely, but my question is this particular project funded through CARES Act funds?
Oh, I'm sorry. So we will use some of the CARES Act funds for this to support the pandemic response, and then when it becomes an ongoing deep cleaning of our of stations, we will just use our regular operating dollars to do that.
I assume this is aimed also at maintaining our stations once we get the rehabs done too.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, if somebody else had something.
Mr. Griffin, this is Frida Hartage. I have a comment.
Please.
I rode the train recently from North Springs, got on and went all the way to the airport and back, and got on and off a few times, just so that I could see the improvements. And I just want you all to know that these stations, I've never seen them look so nice and so clean. And you can tell the staff is really working hard trying to get the stations cleaned. And I felt like the whole time I was on and off the trains, how clean everything was. So I just wanted to make that comment because I really could tell a difference.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Thank you.
Any objections to the resolution? Any abstentions? All right, resolution passes. Get back to my agenda here. All right, number 7 is resolution authorizing the approval of MARTA Agency Safety Plan. Gina Major. Gina's back again, Assistant General Manager for Safety and Quality Assurance. Here we go.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman Griffin, Vice Chairwoman Ivy, Mr. Parker, and members of the Ops and Safety Committee. This briefing is in support of a resolution authorizing the approval of MARTA's new agency safety plan. Next slide, please. So previous briefings have given statuses on the progress of MARTA's new agency safety plan, but I'm happy to finally be before the committee today with the resolution authorizing its approval. So just to look back at the Federal Rule 49 CFR 673, which was finalized in 2018, this new federal rule required all rail transit agencies to sunset their old system safety program plans and develop a new agency safety plan based on the 4 pillars of safety management system, which are safety policy, safety risk management, safety assurance, and safety promotion. And a few of the board members, of course, have had a chance to attend FTA-sponsored workshops and training on SMS. MARTA launched training on SMS throughout the authority earlier this year. The Department of Safety and Quality Assurance just recently obtained ISO 9001 2015 certification of its quality management system, which is foundational to SMS. So we are well down the road of familiarity with SMS and are ready to put our new plan into action. Next slide, please. Just a reminder again on the minimum requirements of an agency safety plan are shown here. Documented processes and procedures for the new SMS, performance targets based on the safety performance criteria established under the National Public Transportation Safety Plan, address all applicable requirements and standards as set forth in FTA's Public Transportation Safety Program and National Public Transportation Safety Plan, establish a process and a timeline for conducting an annual review and update of the agency safety plan, and an emergency preparedness and response plan. Next slide, please. Now you guys may recall the original final approval deadline for all rail transit agencies was July 20th, 2020. However, due to the unforeseen circumstances around COVID-19, FTA moved the enforcement date to December 31st, 2020. Next slide, please. I'll spend some time here to share that MARTA began development efforts of the new agency safety plan a little over a year ago, following the authority's triennial audit by the Georgia Department of Transportation, who serves as our state safety oversight agency. In a highly collaborative process with GDOT, we submitted 7 drafts of the agency safety plan in addition to a comprehensive review by FTA's Technical Assistance Center. They found our plan to be compliant with the requirements set forth in the federal rule. We also held 3 work sessions prior to receiving final concurrence from GDOT last week, which included participation from Mr. Parker and GDOT's Director of Intermodal, Carol Comer. So their participation was not just in these workshops, but they have both been actively involved in the reviews and the various stage gates in getting to this point. So with final concurrence received by GDOT on the 24th, we expect their final approval on October 31st. However, GDOT cannot approve or give final approval of our agency safety plan until it is first approved by our board of directors and Mr. Parker as our accountable executive. GDOT's final approval also involves their review of 55 ancillary documents associated with the agency safety plan. As of today, they have 3 remaining to review and are on track to have their final approval completed by October 31st. Next slide, please. So just in sharing the specific language regarding the Board of Directors approval, Federal Rule 673 references language in accordance with Federal Rule 5329, in which states as shown, an approval by the transit agency's Board of Directors or an equivalent entity and a signature from the transit agency's accountable executive. Next slide, please. So with that, I would like to ask for a resolution authorizing approval of MARTA's new agency safety plan. Thank you.
This is Frida Hardage, and I approve.
You make a motion to approve.
I make the motion to approve. These people have worked so hard on this.
They certainly have. Since your
Second.
since your signature will be on there with Gina, I assume it's the 3 of y'all that go away if something's not right. All right.
Chairman, I didn't know if you heard the second.
Okay, Roberta seconded. I think this is quite an undertaking, and I tell you what, there's a lot of work gone into this.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to, I thank you for those sentiments and comments. It has been a lot of work, and I would be very remiss if I did not acknowledge the involvement of our CEO, Mr. Parker, in this. Again, it's been highly collaborative with GDOT, but he has certainly been right there in the dirt with us and working and making the sausage to get this done. So thank you.
We certainly appreciate all the sausage makers.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Gina.
Conference.
Thank you, Gina. And you know, not only has Carol and her team been working with literally their sleeves rolled up around this, but you know, I want to thank Russell for his leadership at GDOT for helping us advance this. So thanks to everyone. There's been a lot of hard work. We have a little more to do. We're not completely done, but well on track to meet the deadlines.
All right. Are we ready to vote? Does anybody object to this resolution? Any abstentions? If not, Gina, it's approved.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Now, we have is the briefing. This is the first time we've been forced to present report State Department of Emergency Management. So how about updating the frontline employees?
Good morning, Chairman Griffin, Co-Chair Ivy, and the remaining committee members. I'm Chief Crayer, the Assistant General Manager of Police and Emergency Operations. I just wanted to piggyback on what Gina said, being part of those GDOT conversations. She did an amazing job tussling back and forth with GDOT to make sure MARTA's best interests were at heart. And I really took a lot of good information from those conversations. So thank you, Gina. Mr. Griffin, you had mentioned in earlier conversations that you had seen some media information about our MARTA employees and the recent assaults that were reported over a couple of different channels. So I wanted to touch bases with the committee and just let them know what the MARTA Police Department is doing to make sure that our employees are safe and secure as they work through not only COVID-19, but their day-to-day operations. Next slide, please. So what's important for MPD is we follow and report every week our operator assaults on bus operations. And this slide is one of the slides that we share daily with the executive team. And then we speak about this every week during the C-team meetings. And this slide represents a 7-day period, the monthly update, and then the year-to-date update on our operator assaults and bus operations. And as you can see, For year to date, we're down about 38% in bus operator assaults compared to 2019 at the same time. This slide is dated, the last day was September the 12th, with 38 compared to 61. Of those 38 assaults, 26 have been cleared by arrest. So we're still working diligently to clear up the additional cases. But on the bottom of that slide, what you'll see also is preventable versus non-preventable. And we felt it was important to make sure that we track if there are some issues that we can help bus operations with how they deal with public face-to-face. And as you can see, only one of those 38 instances were what we consider preventable by the bus operator. So I think that shows how great the operators are doing under a COVID-19 pandemic and their ability to navigate through this with the rear boarding and the mask enforcement on the buses. Next slide, please.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, would you please ask him if you could tell me what slide number? This is Rita Scott. I'm not able to. Can you please tell me what slide number, please, please, please?
I don't think we have this, do we?
On my presentation, this will be the third slide.
Ms. Scott, I don't believe that that's in the packet.
Okay, well, that's why I can't find it.
That's right.
And I'm not able to get on the WebEx meeting because I found out the problem is on the MARTA end.
Madam Chair, it is in the package.
What page number is it, Ms. Abdul Salam?
Ms. Scott, they're not numbered.
Yes, they are. It's in the left-hand corner.
In the left corner?
Of your screen.
No, I'm not on the screen. I'm actually looking at my package.
Oh, I see it now, Roberta. It's number 205 of 240.
Got it.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry for the interruption, but I want to feel comfortable with the presentation.
Ms. Scott, the title says most affected routes on the top as the title.
Yes, and it's number 205.
Thank you. That helps.
Please, we've got a lot of interference here.
My goodness.
Ms. Scott, are you able to find it?
I can scroll to 205. I just needed to know specifically because after leaving the last presentation, there are a couple of other pages, and I wanted to know where I needed to be as I am not able to participate through WebEx.
Would somebody mute their machine? It's got a status.
Thank you. I do have it.
Okay, great. So the next slide titled Most Affected Routes. This is another slide that we share with the executive team every week and the C team every week. And what this breaks down is the routes that we see the most assaults. As you can see, Route 83 year to date has the most. We just had another recent assault on 83 this past week, and that is the Campbellton Road corridor. As you all know, that's a very large route. So we're working with Collie Greenwood's team to maybe beef up a couple of extra patrols. And we'll talk about what we're doing on the buses here in a minute. But the bottom half of that slide also breaks down the incidents by precincts. So we can actually track what precincts we're having the most, so we can concentrate our enforcement efforts in those precincts. The next slide, please. So what we wanted to do is to make sure not only that we're doing every day what we call bus patrols, where we ride bus routes and mark patrol cars and assist with any calls from bus services. We wanted to begin what we call the bus marshal program. And that began back in the beginning of September when we went ahead and moved from rear boarding to forward boarding fare collection. So we added an actual MPD officer to the top busiest routes that actually ride the bus and help our operators navigate moving from rear boarding back to forward boarding. And what we've seen is a tremendous reduction in our assaults and even our ability to make sure that we have immediate response when we do have another one on a different route. We can radio that in a lot quicker. We do this on both shifts, the day shift and the evening shift, so we have coverage pretty much from the beginning of the morning all the way till probably around 11 or 12 at night. Next slide, please. We're also doing what's called train patrol. We started this back in August. And again, both shifts, day and evening shift, we have uniform officers and our K-9 officers that are actually getting on the train and riding the train cars to make sure that we can assist not only with the security of our employees, but also our passengers. Next slide, please. So moving through COVID, back in March, what we saw were a lot of the courts were closing. So we weren't able to really prosecute a lot of the what we call quality of life issues that we see around our stations. So we were having to either issue right with respect suspensions or not even putting anybody in jail. The jail system was also facing COVID-19 restrictions. So a lot of the normal cases that we could make to help clean up the stations with quality of life things, we weren't able to put those people in either the city jail or the county jail early in the summer. So what we saw was a large increase in fare evasion. And fare evasion, as you know, leads to other crimes. So we felt like it was important to go ahead and start working on fare evasion. Some of the courts opened back up again, so we were able to make these cases. So we began a detail about 3 weeks ago. It's an undercover detail with MARTA police officers and also some of our uniform officers. And we picked the top 10 busiest stations and the top slowest stations. And we rotate a 5-person detail every day to go and enforce fare evasion. And what we've seen in the last couple of weeks is this has also significantly reduced our violent crime that we were seeing as a result of the fare evasion. So we're very happy about the results of this. We're going to continue this detail. It was originally going to be a 30-day detail, but I feel like it's important enough to continue this as we move forward. And then part of the media coverage was the fact that there might have been some crime that happened either on MARTA property involving MARTA employees. And we felt like we needed to do another step towards assisting our employees when they felt like they had been a witness to crime or been a victim of crime, that they could report that anonymously to the MARTA Police Department. So we've set up a tip line. We just got that approved through legal, and we should be standing that up here in the next couple of weeks with all of our employees to be able to have an avenue to report criminal activity and not have to give their personal information if they don't want to. We thought that was very important. So with that, I just want to wrap it up by saying the last 7 months has been a great experience under Chief Dunham's leadership. She left me a fantastic department to work with, and I can't express how happy I am with the women and men of this department and how they've navigated through a pandemic and been able to keep this authority safe. But with this, I'll turn that back over to the chairman.
Thank you, Chief. I certainly appreciate that update. Let me ask you a question on manpower. Where are we now on manpower? I know we have had some issues, and I think every department's having issues now. Unfortunately, law enforcement is taking it on the chin in many instances, and I think we've got a fine department, but what's our status?
Sure. So when I took over the police department, Mr. Parker and I really wanted to discuss how the footprint of the police departments was going to look. Moving into the future, I felt it was important, and he felt it was important, that we look at how our staffing is compared to sworn officers versus what we call field protective specialists. And if you've seen those out in the stations, those are our non-sworn officers that are in the blue uniforms.
Right.
And what we're really trying to do is navigate how many sworn officers do we really need versus how many field protective specialists can fill those positions. So before I got here, we moved to 25 positions for field protective specialists out of our sworn FTEs. And we filled all but about 6 of those positions. I've got about 6 or 7 files that are coming to me in the next couple of weeks. So I feel confident we'll fill those 25 in the next month. And then as far as sworn non-FTEs, we currently have about 30 vacancies. We do have 5 officers that start the academy in November. And then I have 2 officers that are in the academy currently, and then 1 that'll start in January. So I feel like probably by the end of fiscal year 21, we'll be pretty close to filling our FTE positions.
Okay. Thank you.
Chairman, can I just add that Scott's done a wonderful job around staffing. In addition to what he just spoke about, he's had a real focus on filling his command staff and really, you know, maybe not every position in his command staff is filled, but you know, through the layers of management, he is, you know, he has the right leadership team to support him and support the frontline police officers who are out there working every day. So thanks for that effort, Scott.
Thanks, sir.
That's great. You mentioned that you were reallocating and looking at the crime numbers and everything, of the incident numbers. Our county and in the South Precinct, which is a place precinct, we're about 36%. Somebody's got background noise. You are moving people around, strictly assigning people to a particular precinct, always and ever.
I'm sorry, sir, you were cutting in and out. I couldn't hear the question.
My question was, you said you're reallocating resources. So where you see inequity or problems developing in an area, you do send manpower in. I know, for example, that the contract that MARTA executed with Clayton County had a specific number of officers. And I don't think we've ever done the number of officers, because it's always explained to me that you do allocate the people where you need them. There's bring to precincts, you do move people around when you have need.
Yes, sir. So what I implemented when we got here was I put out a daily report that goes to the entire executive team. And that daily report is broken down like you saw with the bus operator assaults. It's a 7-day picture, a 30-day picture, and a year-to-date picture. And that's broken down also by precincts. So we can look day to day on where our violent crime is and where our crime spikes are. And what we've done is we pulled back all the mandatory, what they used to call mandatory beats, by just filling positions with overtime without really having any tie to the crime trends. So we took that away, and now we focus strictly on where the crime trends are on a day-to-day basis. And I think what we're able to show is that we're a little bit more meticulous with how we operate with our overtime.
I'm sure everybody's glad to hear that. Okay, any other questions?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. It's Roberta. I'm following up with your question, as much of it as I could hear. So on the slide 205 with the incidents by precincts, and we have South/Clayton, the number 14 and then 37%. So it's 14 incidents, but you're not saying those 14 incidents are in Clayton, are you?
No, that's just the South Precinct. So that could be anywhere on the South Precinct line.
Okay, so can you tell me the incidents in Clayton?
I can certainly get that information for you.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, any more questions, Chief? If not, thank you very much, Chief. It's good to meet you by Zoom, and we're glad to have you.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
All right, are there any other matters to come before this committee? We've had a day of it. You have included your FY 2021 key performance indicators for July, and I'll leave that for information. You can study that at your leisure.
Mr. Chairman, are you serving lunch?
Yeah.
That barbecue would be good right now.
We didn't get breakfast either, I noticed. That's MARTA ought to be in good shape. Before this committee, then we'll stand adjourned.
Hello, Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
I do want to add my concern about not being able to join the system via WebEx, and I've had it troubleshooted through IT since I was not able to join, and the problem seems to be on the MARTA end, where my URL is not set up correctly. So I wanted to make that, I wanted to note that for the meeting records.
Well, I reckon somebody's better get that URL fixed.
Yes. Well, it may also be a Cisco problem, because today, for example, I had to completely log out. Once I had to shut my whole computer down and start all over because it kept going out. So it may be something else.
What I've done is went through WebEx on another pad, and it could be WebEx, but it may be WebEx with MARTA.
Yeah.
Okay. Ms. Rita, would you take care of that? Work on that for next week.
Okay, so finish. I'm getting a lot of feedback now.
Hey, Rod, this is Rod Edmond.
Yes.
I'm gonna have to peel out of this meeting. I've got a hard 11:30, so I'm not gonna be on there, but I'll look over the minutes and everything, okay?
Okay.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, we stand adjourned. We'll put the business management.
Yes, I'd like to call the business management meeting to order. Mrs. Peters, can you give us a roll call?
Sure. Roberta Abdul Salam.
Present.
Robbie Ash.
Present.
Jim Durrett.
Present.
Roderick Edmonds. Bill Floyd.
I am still here.
Roderick Firestone.
Present.
Ryan Glover. Jerry Griffin.
Here.
Frida Hardage.
Still here too.
Alicia Ivy.
I think I'm here.
Russell McMurray. Al Pond.
Present.
Rita Scott.
Present.
Christopher Tomlinson. Thomas Worthy. Mr. Chair, we have 10 board members present.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Peters. I appreciate the board members staying on for this last and very important meeting, the Business Management Committee meeting. So can I get approval for the meeting minutes from the August 27th meeting?
Al Pond.
I move approval of the minutes.
Mr. Pond, move. Who second?
Second, Ivy.
Mrs. Ivy, second. So I didn't take a vote on the minutes. No, they've been moved in second. All those in favor? First of all, do we have any objections, any changes to the minutes? Do we have any abstentions concerning the approval of the minutes? Okay, hearing none, the motion carried for the minutes. First item on the agenda is a resolution authorizing the modification and the contractual authorization for the professional services and the purchase of software for the implementation of the Enterprise Performance Management Planning and Budgeting System for the Office of the Management and Budget. RFP P3 P39893. Mr. Tory Kerber.
Good morning, Mr. Yes, sir. Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Parker, Mr. Hurley, the BMC committee, MARTA employees, and guests. I, Tory Kirby, Director of Technology Applications, am seeking your approval to authorize the modification of our existing Infosys Limited Contract number P39893 to increase in value by $195,588. The current contract value is $907,688. Your approval will allow for continued implementation and integration services, as well as the renewal of 25 user licenses for the period of 1 year, at which time these licenses will co-term and merge with the existing Oracle licensing agreement. In conclusion, I seek your approval authorizing the general manager or his delegate with the ability to modify the current Infosys limited contract P39893 to increase in value by, again, $195,588 using local operating funds for fiscal year 2021. The new contract value will be $1,003,276.
All right, Mr. Kirby, can you please advance your slide? Because we're just looking at the agenda now.
Chairman Frierson, I do not believe there are any documents beyond this one. There was not a presentation included.
There is a presentation in the packet.
Yes.
Yes.
Page 5.
Yeah, there is in the packet.
This is Robbie Ash. I'll move approval of this resolution.
I'll second it.
And I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded. All right. Do we have any objections to the resolution? Do we have any abstentions to the resolution? Okay, hearing none, the resolution has passed. Thank you, Mr. Herbert. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Chairman Frierson.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is a resolution authorizing the solicitation and proposal for the procurement of leave of absence administration services, RFP P47301. Mr. Steve McClure.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Parker, Ms. Barrero, and members of the board. I'm Steve McClure, Director of the Office of Human Resources. I'm here requesting authorization to solicit proposals for the procurement of leave of absence administration services, P47301. This is a recurring contract replacing P35334, which will expire on May 1, 2021. Services in this contract will include, but are not limited to, the administration of our medical leave programs, such as administration of our family and medical leave, applicable state laws, administration and medical management of our long-term sick and sick leave programs, administration of our self-insured short-term disability program with a Vice to Play. Under this contract, we want to continue to provide opportunities to improve employee availability, optimize the management of our various medical leave programs, and ultimately reduce overall costs associated with leaves of absences through root cause analysis of major categories of leave, appropriately detailed case management, and recommendations for mitigation of causes. The estimated amount for this solicitation is $1,842,210 for a term of 3 base years and 2 one-year options. This is an increase of 8% over our current contract of $1,705,750. We, as the HR staff, request that the MARTA Board of Directors authorize the solicitation of this proposal for the procurement of our leave of absence administration. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Move approval.
Okay, we have a second, and we have a motion to approve. It's been second. Who seconded? I'm sorry.
This is Frida Hardage. I can second. I'm not sure anybody did.
Okay. All right.
This is Robbie Ash. I'm happy to second it.
Okay. I think Mr. Griffin made the motion. It was properly moved in second. All right. Now, the discussion.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Bill Floyd, you say that you list a bunch of detail in there about what the solicitation is for, and then you say not limited to, and I'm wondering what the reason for that is.
Well, the reason for that is when we look at some of these administration of these services, we're looking at a lot of them on a case-by-case basis when it comes down to the kinds of follow-up services that we may need to have.
Was that clear, Mr. Floyd?
Fine, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Yes.
Just wanted to ask Mr. McClure if he would tell us, remind us, who is the current provider for this contract?
The current provider is Work Partners.
Out of Atlanta?
No, out of Pennsylvania.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Any other discussions? Okay, hearing none.
Hi, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Scott.
When utilizing the services, are you looking at having the employee also having access for questions and answers by being able to contact the administrators of the system?
Absolutely. That's the way it works now. When a person is going to request leave, they need to contact Work Partners, who is our current vendor, and we will continue that process along with their supervisors.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mr. Chair, this is Alicia.
Yes. Yes, Ms. Zions.
Thank you. Mr. McClure, just one quick question, if I may. I just wanted to understand what has been from MARTA personnel with regard to interfacing with the company that we're currently using and some of the feedback that they may be looking forward.
Well, I think that we have two different sets of feedback. One from MARTA administration, from the HR department and from the managers within the various departments. The feedback has been extremely good because we get a daily report right now from Work Partners on the status of individuals within the departments. And that happens again on a daily basis. I think on some employee levels, not all, we do get a little more negative feedback that they have to go through this process, and that it is a process where they're making calls to an outside agency.
Have they found
any other questions? Go ahead.
Have they found ease and use in terms of communication? What is from the negative perspective, just so that we are aware and just understand it?
Well, I think that the major, again, feedback again is that they're making contact with some entity that is not a part of MARTA, is the biggest negative feedback. And the fact that there is interaction that has to occur between the employee and their medical provider, their physicians, to ensure that they have all the documentation. And the interaction that happens between the vendor and the employee to ensure that all the certifications are done correctly, that the eligibility and all the other requirements are done correctly. So there is an interactive process that happens between the employee and the vendor. And so I think that at times that can be a little putting off with some of the employees.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Chair, this is Rita Scott. The second part of my question before that I had at the time was somewhat around what Ms. Ivy asked, but also wanting to know if those employees, what you're saying, their concerns may have been around how effective the HIPAA law is with having to discuss with an outside vendor?
Well, that has certainly been I think, a question. However, the vendor is a business partner, a business associate, and so they are covered under the same HIPAA protections that we would be as the employer.
And that has been explained to the employee?
Yes. And if it hasn't been clear, we will certainly make sure that it's clear as we go forward with this process.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Roberta, one quick follow-up, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. McClure, does this provider also handle the FMLA program?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, hearing none. All those who are opposed to this resolution, are there any that are opposed to the resolution? Are there any abstentions to the resolution? Okay, hearing none, the resolution has passed. All right, thank you, Mr. McClure. Appreciate it very much. The last item on our agenda is a briefing. Contracts and Procurement and Materials. Jacqueline Holland, Director of Contracts and Procurement and Materials. Mrs. Holland, you have the floor.
Good morning, Chairman Frierson, Mr. Parker, Mr. Hurley, and other members of the Business Management Committee. My name is Jacqueline Holland, and I am the Director of Contracts, Procurement, and Materials. I would like to direct your attention to agenda item number 4, a briefing on the Office of Contracts, Procurement, and Materials. Next slide. The role of CPM. The Office of Contracts and Procurement and Materials, commonly known as CPM, has direct oversight of 3 branches: contracts, purchasing, and materials. CPM is responsible for cradle-to-grave procurement, that is from the receipt of a requisition through contract award, payments, and closeout of the contract. We are responsible for maintaining the integrity of the procurement process. We're also responsible for maintaining the spending threshold levels from the Board of Directors, the General Manager, and management approvals provided by the General Manager's delegation of authority. Next slide. This slide is a depiction of the procurement to pay process. The first step in the process is the requesting department or office identifies a need. The requesting department or office will create a requisition in our Oracle ERP system. The requisition will then route to CPM. We will collaborate with the requesting office, legal services, and determine the type of solicitation. CPM will then coordinate pre-planning meetings with risk management, diversity and inclusion, safety and quality assurance, police, and cybersecurity to include all of the necessary requirements into the solicitation documents. We will then advertise the solicitation and have pre-bid and pre-proposal meetings with vendors and stakeholders. At the deadline date of the solicitation, CPM, along with legal services, will have a responsiveness review of all bids and proposals received. A responsibility review is then completed by the requesting office, and a vendor is selected and recommended for award. The next step in the process is we will then route the contract for execution by the general manager or his delegate. After the contract is executed, a purchase order is created and approved in Oracle. The requesting office will then reach out to their vendor to request their goods or services. Once those goods or services are received and approved, the invoice is then sent to accounts payable, and then we go ahead and pay the vendor. So that is the procurement to pay process flow. Next slide. You may wonder, how do we identify potential vendors? Well, MARTA has a database located in our Oracle iSupplier system. This database provides us with a listing of our vendors by the type of commodity or service that they provide. Our vendors are able to go into this system and update their contact information. That system is called iSupplier. We also reach out to vendors from prior contracts. Our requesting department also provides recommendations to us. The Office of Diversity and Inclusion, they provide us with recommendations because they're included on every procurement that we handle here in CMP. We advertise in the AJC, the Georgia Procurement Registry. We also advertise on MARTA's website. We utilize other transit industry publications like Transit Talent and Passenger Transport. We also will reach out to other transit agencies and ask for a list of vendors that they may have used on similar types of procurements. We utilize the internet to search for vendors. And then we have what is called Industry Day events. We ask vendors to come in to pre-bid and pre-proposal conferences as well. We have a list of their contact information and we maintain those lists here in the department. Next slide. Members of the board, you all have said to us that you are concerned about us minimizing the use of GSA in statewide contracts, and we have listened. We are now minimizing the use of GSA in statewide contracts by directly procuring contracts under the competitive bid process. We currently give notice to the board at least 1 month prior to bringing any GSA or state contract for approval. And we understand that limiting the use of GSA in statewide contracts will give the Office of Diversity and Inclusion an opportunity for additional DBE outreach. Next slide. We're going through some cost-saving initiatives here with utilizing GSA in statewide contracts. One initiative is what we call the General Consultant Professional Services Contract, also known as GCPS. That particular contract is utilized by several offices here in the authority, for example, safety and quality, police, cybersecurity, IT, and operations. CPM is currently collaborating with these departments to utilize the competitive bid process to allow for more competition and better pricing. This will give us the opportunity to gain a larger pool of vendors instead of just the list that's currently on the GSA contract. We're continuing to analyze this GCPS contract to make changes in fiscal year 2022. The Department of Safety and Quality Assurance has significantly reduced the number of these consultants to now full-time equivalent employees. The Department of Police has also recently reduced the number of their consultants as well. We are working with the other areas to identify resources for full-time employees. Next slide. I wanted to share some of our procedure improvements. We're continuing to make improvements in our procedures. We've been working with legal services. We have updated our protest procedures and added a protest security. We have also corrected the ambiguity in the protest procedures. We updated our work order procedures to create an ease of processing work orders. The new procedure eliminated the work order committee to allow for a faster timeline. The new procedure allowed us to have multi-year work orders. This will eliminate delays and work stoppages on projects, while in many cases we would have had to wait for change orders and to get time extensions for new fiscal year work orders. That is no longer the case. In order to comply with the FTA and the Georgia Department of Transportation, we updated our procurement procedures to mandate safety and quality assurance review and sign off on all procurements. Next slide. We're also automating our business processes. A huge undertaking was done this year called the encumbrance process. CPM, along with the Department of Finance, Information Technology, Capital Programs, and Training, have been involved in completing the encumbrance process. Encumbrance was necessary to comply with FTA requirements, and it was implemented this past July. As a means to avoid budget overspend, the encumbrance process will reserve funds when requisitions are created and obligate funds when purchase orders are approved. It will allow for funds checking from the requisition through payment. Another process improvement is a contracts management system. We're currently working with the Department of Information Technology to develop a contracts management system. The benefits of a contract management system is it will eliminate the manual procurement processes to reduce errors, as well as automate our contract processing. It will provide for an ease of reports on purchase orders and contracts. It will provide visibility on contract spend and access to the entire contract history, and also provide us with faster access to information. Next slide. What have we been doing with the impact of COVID-19 on CPM? Well, with the COVID-19 pandemic, CPM has procured and stocked inventory with PPEs, face shields, masks, hand sanitizers, and gloves for distribution to our employees and patrons. We have procured cleaning supplies to clean and sanitize the stations, rail cars, and buses. We have procured over 1,178 shields to install in MARTA's buses. And we also awarded heavy cleaning contracts to 8 contractors under the GM's emergency procurement procedure. The heavy cleaning contracts were Mr. Sean Thomas spoke about earlier, and this is just from how well these contractors have done now that we're moving from emergency to allowing us to have a procurement for future. Next slide. Thank you. This concludes my briefing.
Mrs. Holland, we appreciate that briefing, letting us know these things. Do we have any questions from anyone from the board?
Let me ask a question on that last point.
Yes.
The heavy cleaning contract now, under the emergency procurement, in what we saw in part of the emergency of the heavy cleaning was cleaning the outside concrete on the Garnet Street station. What part of that is an emergency procedure? I mean, I understand cleaning of the station and disinfecting the station and everything, but I'm not sure I follow the definition of heavy cleaning contract.
So, Mr. Griffin, when COVID-19 pandemic, in the spring, under Mr. Parker's emergency, we put together scope of work working with the facility department, and they understood what types of cleaning was required in the stations. Sure. So we put together, procurement for facilities, and they are working with these contractors and identifying what they need to have clean. So
my question goes to cleaning the outside of train stations, concrete. What does that have to do with emergency procurement? I reckon it's a question I have.
Yeah, hey, Jerry, this is Dave. The presentation that Sean presented was for deep cleaning and sanitizing, and it's task order based. It's going to be an RFP. We're going to bring it back to the board. As the GM had mentioned, we're currently working on the scope of services. What Ms. Holland was alluding to is that gap filler where we issued a couple of small procurements.
Okay.
We ran out and did
All
the
right.
sanitizing. Yeah.
Okay.
I understand that, and that's fine. Okay, thank you.
Great. Any other questions? Yes,
Yes,
Simon.
thank you so much. I wanted to first of all, for just going over all of this with us, because particularly the payment process flow chart, because it really gave me a snapshot of the steps that you all take. In addition to that, the thought process of the flow of how you cast a net to identify vendors, because we want to make sure that we continue to find more people to bid on all of these projects and opportunities that we have. So I want to thank you for providing this information to us so that it's very much useful understanding your process. That is all that I have, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Ivy.
Okay. Does any other board member have questions? Well, I do want to say that there were a couple of slides that you didn't cover, but that I was able to go over, and I love to see the automation of the business processes that you're doing now to create better improvement in processing work orders and purchase orders and that whole process improvement. Those are fundamental things that make a big difference in making sure that those vendors that we do business with are paid in a timely manner. So I do recognize that there were some things that you didn't cover, but that y'all are doing and have done to make this process a lot more fluid. So thank you for that, Mrs. Holland. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman.
All right, any other questions from the board members? We're hearing none. I want to thank you, Mrs. Holland, for your briefing. Thank you very much, board members. I would like to adjourn this meeting. All right.
Everyone have a great day.
Everybody have a great day.
Take care, everybody.
Take care, everyone.
Peace be with you.
Bye-bye.
Get together again. All right. Thank you very much.